Yeah. Welcome to Weddings Uncensored, where we drink and talk and talk and drink. I'm Kyle.
I'm Allie, and we are here breaking down the good, the bad, and the downright crazy of this whole wedding industry.
Cheers. Not sponsored.
I know, only water today. So boring. Are we gonna let our listeners down by knowing that we're only drinking water today?
No, I think it's a good break.
It's probably a good
break.
We do have planned a potential just drunk episode where we're gonna
even it out a little bit.
When we go totally off the rails for that one, it's gonna be a shit show. It'll be fine.
But today we're talking about questions that we've been asked. So
yes.
The topic is not a particular topic.
Listener
it's
questions.
The listener question. So for anyone listening or watching, please comment, DM us, let us know if you have questions or things. We're more than happy to either, one, tell you to go back to an episode that we've already talked about.
We've covered this. Get out of here. No, but we'll send you that link. But we also want to make episodes talking about things that you actually want to know. Sure do.
So it makes sense.
Yeah, please engage. Let us know what's going on.
Yeah.
At Shore and Wave, at Pop the Champagne, at Weddings Uncensored.
At Weddings Uncensored first.
We're here to help.
That's right.
But, and we love the engagement, and like you said, the whole point of this podcast is that we can
help you.
And sometimes we jibber jabber on, and I think sometimes we forget to we're so worried about logistics and we think about the day of a lot and stuff that it's nice to take a step back and ask what you're actually worried about or thinking about.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess going into it, we have a few questions here so far. So one question that we are getting is, when logistics are easy, but managing emotions, opinions, expectations can be hard.
Yeah.
So I guess the finding the vendors has been easy for this person.
Right.
But the emotions are a lot, probably coming from the family.
Yeah.
Opinions, friends and family, expectations, friends and family.
Yeah.
So let's dive into that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the hard part. That's the hard part for a lot of people. I do think we get a lot of questions, or we think about hiring vendors and finding the right venue and managing budget and all of that stuff. Yeah. But really, at the end of the day, those are just boxes to check off of a to-do list, right?
Yeah.
Figuring out the emotional stuff is rough.
Yeah. I'm thinking that it's, at least for me, to me, it's easier to just knock off a list of okay, let's book these people. Yeah. Cool, let's just go down the list. But all the emotional stuff usually happens in between and during all of that.
Yeah.
And then it can turn into, I don't know, just finding a photographer. Mom likes this photographer. Right. You like this photographer. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, if she's paying for a lot of it, then how do you, or
it's all very interconnected.
It's all connected. So it might actually be easier to find the vendors, but the process is just much more difficult.
Yeah. So. Or just finding out things that people care about that you're why do you even fucking care about this? Leave me alone. Why do you have an opinion? Unsolicited opinions is definitely a part of the wedding planning process, especially like you said, if there is budget and people contributing financially, they're going to have opinions.
Yep.
And unsolicited or not, they might matter and you might have to pay attention to them, Yeah. So I think, it's finding the hills you're going to die on early in the process, talking to your partner a lot, figuring out what is super important and what you're willing to compromise on, because there is going to have to be compromise.
Yeah.
Right?
I think, okay, this might sound really bad, and maybe you shouldn't do this.
Oh, God. Anytime Kyle gives advice or it starts off like that.
But let's just say you and I are getting married and John comes over and John said, hey, I'm going to cover your videographer. Mm-hmm. And we find the videographer that we really like, and he finds a videographer that he really likes, and he sends it over to us. So we talk to these two videographers, and we still want the one that we really like. Maybe we just lie to John. Again, it sounds terrible. Maybe we just lie to John and be like, oh, the one that you sent over was really nice, but they're booked. And this one, the one that we like, is either more affordable, they're available, or whatever it might be. Because, I mean, I would probably do that.
So the official advice is build your wedding and relationship on a bed of lies. That's the official advice on how to manage family expectations.
You know, it can be a great excuse. I don't know.
Well,
That's why I said you probably shouldn't do this, but I'm going to say it anyway because this is probably what I would do just to like make it go by.
Well, okay, I'm going to try to get on your side a little bit with this.
No, you can go on the opposite side. No. You can be really nice.
I mean, I do think keeping the peace is important, right? So, yes, like figuring out ways. I mean, everybody does that with their family though. Like Christmas. Yeah, I mean, I think it's true. Like I don't want to hang out with my dad at Christmas. I'm going to say I have X, Y, and Z going on. So, I mean, I think that just in general is going to happen.
House. My kids are sick. Yes. Sorry, I can't go. Yes.
I think little white lies are a part of life and a part of wedding planning for sure. But I think, managing expectations and dealing with family drama and unsolicited opinions is going to happen, period. So first of all, expect it, right? Yeah. Don't be like, oh, this is just going to be a walk in the park and a dream. It's probably not. It's probably going to be hard.
Hope for the best, expect the worst.
Yeah. Yes. And your family and friends. So I think one of my pieces of advice that I often give is like, don't expect someone to change or be different just because you're planning a wedding. Yeah. Like your sister who's a flake is still going to be a flake. Your mom who's a drunk is still going to be a drunk. Your pushy uncle is still going to be pushy. Like it doesn't matter. Yeah. So know that going in. And then maybe along with kind of what you were saying, like if you don't want like opinions, then also just sort of keep some things close to the vest, like keep some of it like between you and your partner. Yeah. I think when you over talk and overthink about things and like you may not even realize you are soliciting those opinions a little bit. People are trying to be helpful a lot. Yeah. Your best friend who got married last year, like she's got all kinds of fucking opinions about the day and what she's going to say. And she's probably coming from the best of intentions of what she's giving you this advice. Yeah. But shut up, Becky. Like I'm dealing with this. I have a different budget and a different Becky, yeah. I have a different budget and a different family and a different situation than you. And so, I think everyone's wedding planning journey is going to be a little bit different in that way.
And I think it's also not your responsibility for other people's feelings. So I think you can be blunt, you can do the white lie, you can just be brutally honest or whatever it is, but just remember like it's not your responsibility to be in control of somebody else's emotions. Yeah. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah. Maybe it is for them, and that's okay. Let them feel whatever they want to feel. Yeah. But if you're happy with the decision you've made, that should kind of be it. Yeah. So that's good. There's going to be people, at least for my wedding, and I'm sure for a lot of people's weddings, there's people that got their feelings hurt and either you don't talk to them for a while or you don't talk to them at all, or they just are awesome and say, oh, cool, sounds good. I'm glad you found X, Y, Z or whatever it is you're freaking out about. Yeah. So you'll have a spectrum depending on the people that you're talking to, but just remember your decisions are your decisions and you're not responsible for like
other people's
feelings.
Yeah, that's true.
It's already hard to manage your own emotions during a wedding. So
And I think the last piece of advice I'd have on that kind of goes along with your lying piece of advice is to hire a planner or a coordinator and then blame the coordinator. I tell my clients all the time, I'm like, blame Allie. She doesn't have to have Thanksgiving dinner with these people like you do. Just be like, I don't know. My coordinator said it has to be this way. Yeah. And honestly, it'll work like a charm 9 times out of 10.
Yeah. But I will say, though, whoever is providing the tips selfishly, please don't tell them. Because if mom is providing the tips and I tell mom to blame me, your boy's not getting the tip. It ain't going to happen.
That's very true.
Very true. Again, that's super selfish of me.
Kyle's full of terrible advice today.
Sorry, guys. Keeping it real. All right, let's go to the next one.
Oh, that's funny.
Let's go to the next one. Okay, how to boil down the guest list. Okay, so in this instance, the listener was concerned about
inviting people they didn't want to invite. Family. Do I have to invite people just because they're family? And how do I create the guest list that I actually want?
Sure. Story time. I actually wasn't gonna say that. Story time. I think I'm sure I mentioned this before, but if you couldn't spell my name or you didn't know where Steph and I met or anything about her, really, you weren't invited to the wedding. Period.
Yeah.
End of story. Unless they were my dad's specific request to invite this person. Then they were invited on the B list.
Yeah.
There was the A list and then the B list.
Yes.
That's how we did it, and I was very happy with it. Someone in the family told me I was causing dissensions because I didn't invite them to the wedding.
Yeah.
Again, I wasn't responsible for their feelings, and I'm like, I'm sorry you feel that way.
Yeah.
And
it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know how to spell the persons that you're going to their name, or you don't even know the person
we're
that
not
they're
friends.
getting married
We're
to,
not friends.
We're
Yeah.
not friends.
Yeah.
Sure,
I agree.
We're family, but we're not even friends. You know?
I agree.
Yeah.
I think definitely create a rule or a line in the sand of like what makes sense to you and your partner, knowing that there will be the compromise of mom has to invite her best friend from college or whatever, like knowing that, but for the bulk of your guest list. But I do want to touch on the A list, B list thing too, because I think a lot of our clients don't know that that's a thing, or you're kind of creating this guest list. So the idea between the A list, B list is that your A list is getting the first round of invitations for sure. And then your B list could be as you get RSVPs no's, or as people are kind of dropping off, then you could start sending out invitations to the B list. You could have a C list as well.
Yeah.
But if you're comfortable sticking around a number for your guest count and you want to make sure that you feel good about sticking there, then absolutely you could have those other folks that you invite. And that is like a helpful way to do it. Another tip is to not send save the dates to people that you don't want to come.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
don't do it in hopes that they're going to be like, oh, we're busy, we can't go.
Right. So save the date you're sending out 6 months to a year in advance. Like you really want that person to block that motherfucking weekend off their calendar, right? But a really easy way to give somebody less notice is just to skip sending that person the save the date. Still send them an invitation or whatever if you feel that this is an obligation that you have to invite them. But that could help if they've potentially already planned their family vacation and can't make it or something like that. That's a good way to do it. I get more lies. This is an episode on wedding lies.
White lies help. They really can. They can be a lifesaver.
Yep. But yeah, I mean, again, there is always going to be compromise. You are going to have to figure out, who you're going to have to make happy. There is some family obligation. This is a good place to talk about, again, very early. Like, do we plan a destination so that we don't have to invite so many people? Do we make it something really small? Pick a venue that can't fit that many people. Like, how do we feel comfortable sort of making that happen? Because if you have a lot of family drama or just the idea of a large wedding overwhelms you. No, you don't have to do that. There are a million ways around it. Don't feel like because, societal pressure says you have to have this big wedding, you do. Maybe you just want dinner with 25 of your closest friends at a restaurant. Like that's also a really beautiful wedding. Or go to Cabo. Whatever it is. But the guest listing can be really hard. And then also know how much guest list is conjoined. Oh my God.
Joined?
Connected? That was connected and conjoined.
What was the first one you said?
Conjected?
Conjected.
Guest list is conjected to budget very, very heavily. So, obviously a per person plate charge for your catering. Every chair costs money. Every centerpiece costs money. Everything that you do, that's one more person at the bar. Potentially more staff that's happening. Like I have a wedding coming up in a couple weeks and they're like in between 110 and 120 is their final guest count. Sounds like it wouldn't be that big of a deal. It's a huge deal. That's adding on another bartender. It's like basically going to be like $1,000 to have these like 5 extra guests, So that is a huge way that you can just be like, we're keeping it really small because the budget is really tight, Don't invite your work friends if you don't want to. You don't have to, So, because that's a huge piece of your budget. It's crazy.
Something I'm thinking about too is you need to find your venue first. Something that Steph and I did that we didn't know because we didn't know is the day after we got engaged, we got breakfast together, and she wanted to go through and we wrote down the names of the people that we knew we wanted to go. But I'm like, thinking about it now, I'm like, we didn't have a venue. Nothing was booked. Absolutely nothing. So I'm like, there can be you make a general like A-list.
Yeah.
But until you get your venue, you may or may not have to get rid of people even on your A-list at that point.
Yeah. Well, I would say they kind of go hand in hand of like, I think some people don't even realize until they start talking to their families and making that guest list of like, oh shit, like we cannot go lower than 150 people. Like that is, especially if you have large families or something like that.
Yeah.
So I do think it can be the opposite way where you're like, because I have had that where like you picked a venue and like, man,
it's only 75 people.
You barely fit, or it's not enough, or whatever. Yeah. So I do actually think you should make your guest list first, but keeping in mind if you already have this dream of Cabo and whatever, or this intimate, dinner party vibe, like then those don't go hand in hand. So I think they're almost like a conjected.
Conjected. It's a conjected idea. You don't want to make a guest list, but you also need to make a guest list.
Yes, and it will make a huge difference on overall budget and your venue selection. Okay. So those are all the early talk type of planning questions that you should be talking about.
Okay, that sounds good. Let's see. We'll go to another question. Let's see. We have how to choose your wedding party.
Don't do it.
Just don't.
Don't have a wedding party.
Just you two.
Yeah.
I think the past 2 weddings I've shot.
No wedding party.
No wedding party.
Certainly more often than not these days. I would say.
Oh, I lied. Just the last one.
Maybe 60% of wedding. I would still say it's like 60 to 70% have wedding parties, but like there's a solid 25-30% of our clients that don't have wedding parties at all, or maybe just one person on each side or like whatever.
It was the brother or the sister or the best friend. Like there was the maid and matron and best man or woman or
really
whatever it is. They keep it at that. Maybe that's so know
that that's okay. Like it's not, you don't have to pick a wedding party. Like it's actually more common not. Also a big trend these days is to not have anyone else standing up at the altar. So even if you have a wedding party, having them sit with the guests, because it looks, I personally love it. I think it looks so clean with just the couple up there. And like you can actually see the altar space. And if you spend $1 zillion on florals or whatever, the wedding I did on Saturday, oh my God, they had the most gorgeous floral installation. Shout out at Ebel. Shout out to With You Florals.
With You Florals. All right.
They did the most phenomenal job, but we had all these bridesmaids and groomsmen stuffed up there too. And I just felt like it really took away from the florals. Yeah. So anyway, you don't have to have a wedding party. Number one.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same rule, I think, with creating the guest list is like, who are those obligations? Yeah. Do you really want that? Is this a compromise you're willing to make? If I have to include all of my fiance's sisters and I don't like them, like maybe I'd rather not do it at all or keep it just to family. If you have a ton of friends and you were in some, fraternity, like, can I keep it to just my 2 brothers? Whatever it is.
There was one just shot where it was made very well aware before the wedding that the groom's brother and the bride do not get along.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, okay, why up here? Like, if you can't in a wedding, you shouldn't be in the wedding party if you're only going to be supporting one person.
Well, yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Ever. Anyone in the bridal party, especially family, but like anyone in the bridal party, don't be there to support just one if you're not there to support.
I mean, you would hope so.
I would hope so.
You would hope so, but unfortunately, there is that kind of family drama that pops up. Sure. But yeah, certainly you would think the groom wouldn't even have his like best man be the person that doesn't like his wife. Yeah, that's not ideal. Certainly.
Is that really a best man?
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds like a family obligation for sure, where they got some pressure to have like the brother in it or something like that. Yeah. But I will also say, like, on the other hand, I have done some weddings where there's like 14 bridesmaids, 14 groomsmen or something like that. And it's fucking fun. It's fun. Like, you know your people and you know your friends, and like know that if you do have this giant wedding party, like it's going to be a little bit of a shit show. You're bound to have some drama. Hair and makeup's going to take forever. Photos are going to be wild. But you can also know that going into it being like,
is the party.
Yeah,
This is
like
it.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love that vibe, and I want all my people around me. And I don't care if it's ridiculous that I have 14,
Yeah.
people standing with me. Like these are my people, and like so that's
100%.
totally fine too. I think it's super okay to have 0 people or to have 20, as long as you are aware of what comes along with both of those decisions.
Yeah.
Because the wedding party can be fun. And then also, I think I've had some couples ask me, like, we don't want to have a formal wedding party, but like, does that mean I don't get to have a
Like
bachelor
getting
party?
ready.
Or people getting ready with me on the day or doing photos. And you can totally do that. I've been in some weddings personally as a guest / non-wedding wedding party member, where they've asked certain people to like be there early for photos or wear a certain color. You're kind of a VIP, but like not walking down the aisle and doing all of the hullabaloo.
I like that. What if it was just a VIP, like instead of calling it you're a bridesmaid or you're a groomsman, you're a wedding VIP.
That's what I call usually like all of the people. So, cause it's usually like maybe there's bridesmaids and groomsmen, but also like the parents could be really included in this like VIP section. And those are the people as a coordinator that I need to know like who all your VIPs are. These are the people that are maybe involved in the ceremony. Maybe they're giving toasts, maybe they're whatever, but they have some kind of special place. So yeah, I think you can have
Wedding
a wedding VIP section and
Love
have
it.
them all wear a certain color and be there early for photos, or maybe they're still part of hair and makeup and they can certainly still throw you a shower and like there's no rules.
The VIP party can still throw you a party.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I had one wedding where they had like a very mixed gender group. They were all their mutual friends, right? They didn't want to have like her side, his side. Like it was just all their friends.
Together.
And they just called them all the peanut gallery. And they stood behind them in like a semicircle. And it was just like this really beautiful, like
nice.
they had a lot of cool mutual friends. And that's the case, I think, with a lot of couples, especially if you've been together a long time or if you're a little older. Like, it's not like, oh, I'm just bringing in my 8 sorority sisters. Like it's, hopefully you've built a life together, and a lot of these people are mutual friends and family. So yeah, I think that there's the wedding party these days is somewhere you can really kind of create your own rules with your wedding and make it whatever makes you feel comfortable.
Love it.
Go big
Go big or don't.
or don't. Or go small.
Go small, go non-existent, or go big.
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool. I like seeing people's variations of wedding parties these days.
Yeah.
And don't stick to gender like specific, and have them wear whatever the fuck they want. And you know, there's like so many different ways that you can make that a really cool expression of your wedding these days.
100%.
Yeah.
Staying on the wedding party, we had another person ask about taboos.
Yes.
So one of the taboos
Well,
is...
so let's say taboo kind of turned into us going down a rabbit hole and looking at superstitions.
There we go. Taboos
Because
/
taboos,
superstition.
yeah, like we think of taboos as, not seeing each other before the wedding or not wearing white to someone else. I don't
Someone's
know. I think it's
wedding
kind of
or-
interesting.
yeah,
but then, that took us down like a superstition rabbit hole.
Yep, sounds good. Okay. So one of them is the wedding party. Why are some of the bridal party all wearing the same thing?
Right.
Where did
that come
Where
from?
did that come from, and why is it still here?
Apparently, I think this is a really good one. Apparently, back in like the Roman times, the bridesmaids would all wear not only the same clothes as each other, but the same as the bride. So like if you think back to like very olden times, like they would all wear white, like all white wedding parties. There's like very old school. But they would
Same
all,
cloth.
they would all wear the same thing. The bride and the bridesmaids would all wear the same thing because the bridesmaids were actually decoys, originally from evil spirits, or also just being like kidnapped, because
That's crazy.
this is like old times.
This is Roman. This is
Old Roman times. So, if someone caught wind that there was an eligible woman that was an unmarried virgin, then even though she was supposed to be wed
up
to
for
someone
grabs.
else, she's up for grabs.
Yeah.
So someone would come and a man would literally come
It's a
and like
heist.
kidnap
It's a
her.
heist. Oh
So
my
the
God.
bridesmaids would all wear the same clothes as a decoy.
Dang.
And then eventually later, this just kind of translated. The bride wanted to stand out more by herself herself, so she would wear something different.
Okay.
And then the
When
brides
it became more safe.
and they weren't worried about kidnapping as much.
Yeah.
Still a concern, no. But then the tradition kind of just stuck that the bridesmaids all wore the same thing.
And she stood out with her one dress.
And she stood out, yeah. But I think what is a funny note, when you start learning about these traditions, is just how insane and outdated they all are.
Yeah.
And how when you think about your own wedding, you don't have to do any of these things because they're actually fucking crazy.
We're just so used to doing them.
We're so
They're
used to doing them.
ingrained.
It's we always say don't do traditions for tradition's sake. But when you actually are wait,
Why
all my
doing-
bridesmaids have to wear the same dress because we're worried about getting kidnapped? It's fucking crazy. Don't do that. Just don't. It makes me want to really not follow any of
For
these
real.
traditions.
I will say for the guys though, would they always wear the same thing? Because I'm pretty sure that no one was trying to kidnap the groom.
I have to do some
look that
Googling
one
on
up?
that one. But it
But
probably comes from the same type of
If they're already doing it, then we should do it. Basically,
like,
I could
probably-
see a guy saying, "Oh, you're doing it. We'll do the same thing.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it."
it probably comes from the same protection group thing.
Okay. I don't know. Next one.
Okay.
Let's see. So, wearing a veil. Why do some people wear a veil?
Okay,
in the
so we
first
learned
place?
that this is kind of goes along with the first look or the not seeing each other before the ceremony thing. It's kind of
We'll
the
connect
same.
them? Okay, sounds
Yeah, it's
good.
the same idea. So, and this is so insane that I'm why does anyone want to wait? But originally that came from the time when most marriages were arranged. And so usually marriage was a business deal. So a lot of times the couple, not only were they not in love, they had not even met before. And so by waiting until they were actually at the altar, it made sure that nobody could back out. So they would meet the first time
Pressure
at
would
the
be too high.
yeah, they didn't have a choice in the matter, especially the women. Their dads traded and bartered some fucking chickens and a
Cow. and a
French
goat.
villa for this woman, and it didn't really matter if they saw each other before.
Yeah.
So that's where the tradition originally came from. Obviously, it has different iterations through Christianity and some different things, but that's originally where it came from. And so the veil was the same thing where you didn't get to see
Dang.
her face until you were about to kiss
People
that
must have been
bitch.
having some ugly people, and they were just hoping.
Oh, it was probably not cute back then.
Probably
Everyone
not.
was real stinky. They didn't have baths. They probably
I don't
needed a
know.
veil for that reason.
It's all
too.
perspective though, because I'm pretty sure the guys also were stinky.
Everyone's nasty.
Everyone's
nasty.
Everyone's
Yeah.
nasty. Hair's not done. nothing.
Right? But yeah, so that's where that came from as well. Was you not only did you not see them until you walked down the aisle, but she had something covering her
Dude,
face
that's
until
crazy.
the last minute. Yeah. So if you're worried about that being a tradition that you're following, don't, because it's insane. I love it though. It's kind of good. It puts it all
I
into
like this
perspective.
because we hate traditions.
Yeah.
And looking back at the taboos or superstitions, confirms
how crazy it
How
all
crazy
is. Yeah,
traditions
yeah.
are.
And how much you really should not give a fuck when you're planning your day. I know. Yeah, this will be a new little segment. We'll kind of add some education. And I've been doing this for, over a decade, and there's still a lot of things that I don't know the meanings of that everyone just does, and we all just say, okay, yeah, something old, something borrowed, something blue. Fuck it. Let's go along with it. No one even knows what it means.
Yep.
So silly.
Obviously, you and I both are not big fans of the cake cutting. So I decided to quickly look up.
Okay.
Where did cutting the cake come from?
Okay.
So it says, in Victorian times, the wedding cake was known as the bride's cake. And originally, the bride would cut the cake and distribute it to her guests herself.
Okay.
So I didn't know that, it was the bride's cake.
Well, because there is a groom's cake. You hear that term. Have you heard that?
Never heard that.
Okay,
term.
so that's very old.
I didn't get a cake on my wedding. So
Well, it's pretty old school, but there is and nowadays a lot of times what people will have the wedding cake and then they'll have a groom's cake, and the groom's cake is
terrible.
well, just every groom, terrible. No, it's something cheesy, like it looks like a Nintendo box, or like it looks like a car that they love. Like it's this very bizarre, like feminine, masculine, like.
So it looks like a cake that you got from Dairy Queen
Yes.
last second or Costco.
Yeah, and it's like the groom's cake. Like we're throwing the groom a bone and giving him this little thing. But it's still a tradition. You'll see occasionally that they have a groom's cake along with the regular wedding cake.
But okay.
I assumed that it had something to do with that, with cutting the cake as like like breaking bread, sort of, like in a Christian way, right? Like this is what we're doing, and then we're sharing. We're cutting the cake to share with our family and friends.
That reminds me, I'm totally missing the name, but for Jewish weddings, they have the
challah.
There we go. Yeah. Couldn't remember. But yeah, they have that right before they
exactly.
have,
so lots of different cultural has lots. Many Asian weddings from different areas have tea ceremonies. Same thing, right? They're honoring their elders and pouring people tea. So I think sharing food and beverage is very much a part of like every culture historically. But so I think that makes sense to me that's where the cake came from as well. Is like doing something together and sharing it with our people. Well, that one's nice. So actually, do you like that one? Are you back on board?
I'm back on board.
No.
I could say, okay, if that was the reason for it, then I feel good about it.
Yeah, it's not crazy like we're trying to stop your bride from getting kidnapped and raped.
Yeah, that one's not so bad.
Lord. I think cake's nice. Wait, we take back everything we said in the last 28 episodes. Cake cuttings are awesome.
They're tolerated. They're tolerated.
At least it's a nice tradition and not something that comes from
just because that's nice doesn't mean I still want to do them all the time.
True. They're still
if you're not excited about it, then don't do it.
Yeah.
That's
a good one.
I think that was good.
I think that was good. Yeah. Oh, I like it. Well, we kind of went off the rails on this one, but that's what we do.
But it was also a request from people listening. So it was off the rails, but it was still on the rails a little bit.
Well, that's just how we do.
Yeah.
That's how we do. Well, cheers.
Cheers.
And see you next Tuesday.
Peace.